Hungarian Folk Tales. The Hare and the Hedgehog. One sunny summer day, a hare and a hedgehog met in the meadow. The hare began to tease the hedgehog and said, "Hey, hedgehog, how can you even walk alone, let run with those stumpy little legs of yours?" This upset the hedgehog. "Well, I'm sure I can run faster with my little legs than you can run with your lanky long ones." Now the hare was upset. "I don't believe that." "Well, if you don't believe it, hare, let's make a wager." So the two of them placed their wagers, and then the hare said to the hedgehog, "Well then, hedgehog, shall we race?" To this the hedgehog said, "Tomorrow morning, when the 8 o'clock train leaves the station." The hare said, "But why not now, hedgehog? Because I have to go home to eat my supper. Let's meet again here tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock sharp." So the hedgehog went home. After they had eaten, the hedgehog told his wife what had happened. "Just imagine, I made a wager with the hare that I can run faster than him." The hedgehog's wife said, "Don't be foolish. How could you possibly run faster than the hare?" "Well, we'll find that out tomorrow morning." The following morning, the hedgehogs got up, ate a hearty breakfast, and went out to the meadow. They didn't go to the place where they should meet the hare, but instead stood at the other end of the meadow. Then the hedgehog told his wife to hide herself in a furrow. He told her, "When the hare arrives, you are to shout out, 'I'm already here, hare!'" Then the hedgehog walked to the far end of the meadow where he met the hare. "Hello there, hare." "Hello there, hedgehog. Are you ready to race?" "Yes, I am." "Then shall we run?" "Yes, let's run." "But how shall we run over such a bumpy field?" The hedgehog said, "It's simple. I shall run in one furrow and you in another, and so we won't bump into each other while we're racing." "That sounds like a very good idea." Then the hare stood ready in one furrow and the hedgehog in another, and the hedgehog told the hare, "I shall count, and when I get to 3, we start to run." And then the hedgehog counted, 1, 2, 3. Then they both began to run, but the hedgehog only ran 2 steps and hid himself deep in the furrow. But the hedgehog's wife was sitting waiting at the other end of the meadow when the hare arrived, and she shouted, "I'm already here, hare!" And the hare said, "That was no good. Let's race again." Then they turned back and began to run in the opposite direction, but this time the hedgehog's wife only ran 2 steps and hid herself deep in the furrow. The hare did his best to run faster than he had ever run before. But when the hare arrived back at the beginning of the meadow, the hedgehog said, "I'm already here, hare." that was no good. Let's race once more." So they turned around and ran back again, but the hedgehog quickly hid in the furrow again. The poor hare ran as fast as his legs would carry him, and when he got to the other end of the meadow, the hedgehog's wife said, "I'm already here, hare." "That was no good," said the hare. "Let's run one last time." But the foolish hare felt dizzy and his legs began to tremble, and he stood in the middle of the meadow, too tired to continue. The little hedgehogs laughed at the silly hare. They had won. The pair of them laughed all the way home, and they are probably still laughing to this very day. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Pink Pig. Once upon a time, in a tiny village, there lived an old woman who never had a child of her own. And she was once overheard saying that she would not really care if God gave her a puppy, just as long as she had a young one to raise. The years went by and the woman eventually gave birth to a baby. But it was actually a baby pig. And it was only then she remembered what she had said about God giving her a baby to raise. But what could she do? Now she had a pink pig, and it was her duty to raise it as best she could. The women of the village would gather in the day and gossip, and the pink pig would always sit with its mother and chuckle happily to itself. Let me tell you that the reason your little pink pig squeals so is that it wants to go to school with the other boys and girls in the village. Please don't mock me so, the mother of the pink pig said, who felt sadly ashamed to have such a child. But the rest of the women nagged her until she eventually sent the pink pig to school in the village. And there the pink pig continued to squeal for the teacher until she threw a book at the pink pig to silence it. The pink pig's nose moved from letter to letter until it eventually learned to read like the other children. One day the children all went off to pick strawberries and the pink pig wanted to join them, but its mother wouldn't let it go. But the neighbours nagged her until she eventually agreed. And as the other children all carried baskets, the pink pig wanted one too, and so its mother hung a little basket on its snout. The boy who lived next door was exactly the same age as the little pink pig, and his mother told him to take very good care of the pig that afternoon. Then the pink pig lagged behind the others on their way and it slipped out of its pigskin. And when it took it off, it was plain for all the world to see that the pink pig was the most beautiful little girl in the land. The pretty little girl quickly filled her basket and then slipped her pigskin back on and went to join the others. The boy next door saw all of this, but he did not say a word. All the children's parents began to worry about their offspring, and so they stood out on the road as they waited for them to come home. Look, the pink pig has brought strawberries too. Who could have filled its basket? The pink pig, the boy said, but he said nothing more of what he had seen. When the children grew up, the boys began to court the girls. And the boy next door went to see the pink pig. His father and mother watched forlornly and wondered what their son wanted from such an ugly beast. But the boy next door never gave up, and he only ever visited the pink pig. At last the time came to marry for the boy next door. Whom will you marry, son? Why, the pink pig, of course. Don't shame us, son. We are old and respected, so don't discredit us now. But his father could clearly see that the boy next door was determined to make the pink pig his bride for life. So he gathered his friends together and went to ask for the pig's hand in marriage. Sadly, my son will never get married if the pink pig refuses his request. The peculiar couple were engaged to be married for some time, and people gathered from far and near to witness their wedding, as it was not every day that a man married a pig. After the wedding feast, the young couple went up to the loft as was the custom. The boy next door had told his mother everything, and he had also told her to take good care and burn the pigskin when they threw it down. The band played when the young couple went up to the loft, and it played when they came down again. The pink pig had gone, and a beautiful girl appeared in its place. Everyone was bewildered by the beauty of the girl, who had once been a pink pig. And that is the end of the pink pig's curly tail. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Foolish Man. Many, many years ago, in a land far, far away, there lived a man and his wife. And I'm sorry to tell you that the man was not very clever. In fact, the man was a fool, and every day his wife had to tell him what to do and how to do it. The man and his wife had a cow, and one day his wife said, "Why don't you take the cow to market to sell it?" So the man dressed her foolish husband in his best clothes, and he left for the market with the cow. It was a very hot summer's day, and a cloud of flies began to bother the cow and make it run back and forth all over the place. And as they were walking, they met a man with a pig. "Kind sir, wouldn't you prefer to swap your troublesome cow for this pig?" "Oh, but of course I would," he said, and they made the exchange. So now the foolish man had a pig. But the pig was harder to control than the cow had been, and the foolish man did not like it at all. And as they were walking, they met a man carrying a goose. "Kind sir, wouldn't you prefer to swap your troublesome pig for this goose?" Oh, but of course I would. Well, the goose was no better. It made a terrible mess, its feathers stuck to the foolish man's clothes, and he soon grew tired of carrying it. As they walked, they passed a man by the side of the road who was selling sharpening stones, and the man said, "Kind sir, wouldn't you prefer to swap your troublesome goose for this sharpening stone?" "Oh, but of course I would." So the foolish man was now left with nothing more than a sharpening stone, and he turned around and set off back home. And as he walked, he passed a pond with ducks swimming on it. The foolish man thought he would like to take a duck home for his wife, so he threw the sharpening stone, it sank into the pond, and all the ducks flew away. Now what am I going to do? No cow, no pig, no goose, no sharpening stone, no nothing. So he took off all his clothes and waded into the pond to find the sharpening stone. He searched the pond but could not find it anywhere. And when he came out of the water, he discovered that someone had stolen all of his clothes. So the foolish man was forced to walk home naked. The foolish man was very hungry when he got home, and so he cut himself a slice of bread and went down into the cellar to have a drink of wine. So he put the bread on the step and looked around to see that the dog had made off with it. He then threw the wine tap at the dog, so all the wine spilled out of the barrel onto the floor. A goose sat in the corner hatching eggs, and the goose said, "Gaggle, gaggle, gaggle." "You're going to tell my wife?" "Gaggle, gaggle, gaggle, hiss, hiss." And the goose went on making a terrible din. So the foolish man grabbed the goose, wrung its neck, and threw it out into the yard. Then he poured a bag of flour into the wine and some feathers, rolled around in it, and sat on the eggs. His wife then came down into the cellar and said, "What on earth is going on here?" She looked around at the spilled wine, the flour and the feathers and saw something sitting on the eggs. "What kind of monster is this? You had better say something before I knock your head off. It's me, dear wife. Don't hurt me." "Where's the cow?" "I swapped it for a pig." "So where's the pig?" "I swapped it for a goose." "So where's the goose?" "I swapped it for a sharpening stone." "So where's the sharpening stone?" "I threw it into the pond. I wanted to hit a duck so I could bring it home to you." "And where are your clothes?" "Somebody stole them while I was looking for the sharpening stone." "Oh, you foolish man." And she pulled him off the eggs and gave him the beating of his life. The foolish man's wife never sent him anywhere again after that, and did everything herself because it was safer that way. And that is the end of my story. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Poor Man's 9 Hens and 1 Cockerel. Once upon a time, there lived a poor man and his wife. And they had more children than there are holes in a sieve. The poor man only possessed 2 small oxen, and he went ploughing with them in the forest every day. He was ploughing there one day when he heard a kind of crying. A big brown bear was wrestling with a tiny rabbit. The poor man laughed heartily when he saw the peculiar sight, but this made the bear very angry indeed. "You'll see, poor man, I shall eat you up, oxen, plough and all." This frightened the poor man, who said, "Oh bear, please don't eat me up, for I have a great number of children, and if I don't plough this field, there won't be any wheat, and then what will the little children eat? Please wait until the end of the day, when my ploughing will be done, and you can come here and eat me up, oxen, plough and all." "Very well," the bear said, and it walked off into the forest. So the poor man went on ploughing, but he felt so sad that he did not know what to do with his sorrow. And as he stood feeling sad, a fox appeared. "Hey, poor man, why are you so sad?" "How could I not be?" And he told the fox about his promise to the bear. "Oh, there's no need to be sad. What will you give me if I help you? Do you have chickens in your yard at home?" "As a matter of fact, we do. My wife keeps 9 hens and a cockerel." "Well, if you give them all to me, I shall tell you what to do. I'll happily give them to you, and you can come and collect them later today. Poor man, I shall return this evening and hide behind a big bush. And then, when the big brown bear comes, I will..." Do you think that will work? It will. Poor man, I have come to eat you up, oxen, plough and all. Very well, eat me. What's that noise, poor man? I don't know. Hunters might be coming with guns to shoot you. Oh, hide me somewhere. I'm so frightened. Here's a sack. Hide in here. So the bear hopped into the sack without a second word, and the poor man tied the sack tight. Then the fox came out from behind the big bush. And he began to feel the sack. What's in the sack, poor man? Nothing but a big noggin of firewood. I don't believe it. But that's what's inside. Well, if it is a noggin as you say, chop it with your axe. So then the poor man hit the sack hard with his axe, and the big brown bear was killed in an instant. Well then, poor man, you promised to give me 9 hens and a cockerel, and I shall go to collect them later tonight. So the poor man went home, unharnessed his oxen, went into the house, ate his supper, and went to his bed for the night. All of a sudden, he heard a knocking on the door. Who's there? "'Tis I, the fox. I've come to collect my 9 hens and a cockerel." "Very well. Wait until I get up and put my trousers on." But the poor man had no intention of dressing, and instead he said to his children, "Bark, children, bark." What was that? We forgot to lock our door before we went to bed, and all the dogs came in from the yard to sleep under our bed. Now they can smell a fox, and they want to eat you up. Oh, hold them, poor man, let me run away. Bark louder. Woof, 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 woof. You see, Fox, I have learned something from you after all, said the poor man, and he turned to the wall and fell fast asleep. And he and his wife and all their children lived happily ever after. Hungarian Folk Tales. The King's Bread. The king in this tale was tired of eating chicken and noodles and cake and milk and bread and other sweet treats every day, and so he issued an order that he should be served an extraordinary dish that he had never eaten before, but that it should be delicious. Well, the king's cook thought, I will do my very best. And the cook carried one spectacular dish after the last to the king's dining table. The cook tried all he could imagine: eggs with honey, pork with sugar, fish with cream, and walnuts baked in milk. But all to no avail, as the king was not impressed and pushed each away with a look of disgust. No sooner had the cook placed the 13th dish before the king when he roared, "Enough! If you fail to bring me a dish I have never tasted, I shall have your head cut off." So the poor cook returned to the kitchen feeling sad. He thought and thought, but he simply could not think of anything clever to cook for the king. He could almost feel the executioner's axe on the back of his neck. With no idea of what to cook, he took a loaf of bread and ran away from the royal palace. When time came for supper the following day, the king sat at his table, as he always did, but no dish was served before him. This had never happened in the palace before, and the king summoned for the cook to be brought before him, bound in chains. But where was the royal cook? They searched the palace high and low, but he was nowhere there. So then the king's carver said to the king, "Your Majesty, I have to tell you that the cook has run away." The king was furious. No supper, and now no cook. Was he the only man in the land to sit before a bare table when it was time to eat? So the king ordered his guards to saddle their horses, and he led them out of the palace on horseback, furious and famished. They set out after the cook, soon found his trail, and rode until they came to a great forest. Here they searched low and high until they sighted him atop a tree, and the king shouted up, "Come down, you wretch, or I shall shoot." But the cook decided not to move and pretended to be dead, held aloft by the tree's strong branches. So the king called his men to chop the tree down. But the guards worked as slowly as they could, because they all liked the cook very much indeed, and they felt sad for his sorry fate. The king would surely have the cook's head cut off, and they would be sorry to see him go, because he had the habit of giving them delicious tidbits that the king ignored. And the roast pork and chicken always made an excellent change to their daily ration of bread. The king soon saw that the guards were slacking and the tree would never be chopped down. Then the king's cook became so frightened by all the chopping that he dropped the loaf of bread he carried, and it fell to the foot of the tree. The king saw the loaf and wondered what on earth it could be. "It is a loaf of bread, sire, and not for a king, but a poor man's food." The king broke a little off and tasted it. "Oh, I've never eaten such delicious food since I was a baby in my mother's arms." "You rogue, you never told me that you could cook food as delicious as this loaf of bread. Come down and I shall pardon you for all your sins." The king's cook now knew that he was safe, and so he climbed down the tree and stood before his sovereign. "Cook, I order you that from now on, whatever you serve on my royal table must be accompanied by bread."